Welcome back to Mission Bound Podcast. My name is Tom, and this is
Mike who?
Mike James, former NBA world champ. And thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking a little bit about sports. We're going to be talking a little bit about life and some leadership and a little faith thrown in there. And so thank you for being with us today. And we're excited because we have one of my favorite NBA players on the show today, Mr. Bonzi Wells. Bonzi, how you doing?
I'm good, my brother. How you doing?
Doing all right. And I know that you know Mike, and thank you for coming on the show today. And we just want to take a little bit and just talk a little bit about you and what's been going on in your life. And we are so glad that you're here. And tell us a little bit about your, you got something coming up real quick here. You got a podcast. Like, we're in a podcast now, but you've got a podcast that's coming. Tell us a little bit about that. What's going on with that?
Well, we have a podcast. Me and Rasheed Wallace started a podcast maybe about 3 or 4 months ago called Let's Get Technical. And I know this is a shameless plug, but let me go ahead and get all the particulars out there.
Go for it. Do it.
Let's Get Technical on YouTube. You can follow us on IG and Twitter under Let's Get Technical or Bonzi and She Tech. We're on all your audio platforms. We're everywhere, man. And we're just working. You know, we just, if you know me and Rasheed, if you remember our playing days, we weren't the best media darlings or even anybody who even spoke in the media much. So, ever since, the world has been changing over the last, few years, people has had a chance to have a voice. And, me and Rasheed has been mulling over this idea over the last couple of years, like, yo, should we do it? Should we not do it? And we were just kind of dragging our feet. And one day I just put the stake in the ground, like, yo, it's our time to do it. I had a lot of inspiration from one of my brothers, Steven Jackson. He started his podcast and started doing a lot of TV stuff and was like, hey, what he said to me was, hey, Bonzi, there's a market for the bad boys. You don't got to have a squeaky clean image to be on TV to have an opinion. People want to hear from guys like yourself and myself. So it stayed with me for about a year, and I talked to Rasheed about it. And then about 5 months ago, he was like, Bonds, let's do it. Just get it started, and we just gonna work it from the ground up. And we just finished our 15th episode last night, and it's so awesome, man. It's a heck of a platform to have a voice, to be able to just just your opinion. Right or wrong, we're entitled to opinions, and we love it.
The beauty is Sheed had two of the best mic drops ever. One of them was ETC, cut the check, and thank you, God bless, and have a good night.
And you forgot, both teams play hard, my man.
Yes. Yeah. So for Sheed to be on a podcast, man, and it only had to take someone like you to be able to bring that out of him, because I'm sure that's not his personality.
Well, as you know, Sheed has been probably one of the most misunderstood guys in the history of the NBA. People have always seen the shell of Rasheed, the antics. Oh, he's a technical foul. He's a hothead. And Mike, as you know, and you play with Rasheed, you got a chance to see the real Rasheed. Rasheed's a man. Like, if you ever play with Rasheed, you're always going to put him in your top 5 teammates in the history of ever playing with anybody, because he's a great guy, great person to be around. And what I call him, he's a one of one. There's nobody like him that I've ever met, because he stick to his guns. He's the same, he's the same way. He's not going with the trends. He just dances to his own beat. And that's what I've always appreciated about him. And he's a straight shooter. He's telling you what you think about it, right or wrong. He's going to tell you, and it just is what it is. And our relationship has been tight since my rookie year. He was my vet. He looked out for me. We went to war in Portland for all those years, and we just stayed tight. We raised our families. Our kids are around the same age, so we raised our families together. Our families are tight, so it just worked out perfectly for us.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see the success that you guys are going to have on that podcast. So thank you for coming on our podcast to talk about your podcast. And I got to tell you, it's you've had an amazing career. You played with the Trailblazers, the Grizzlies, the Kings, Rockets. We're in Houston right now, and we're filming from there. Yeah. Which, of your career, what was your highlight? What was the one thing you're like, and I know every sportscaster asks you this, what was your favorite moment? Really, truly, what's the moment you'll never forget, whether it was the most successful or not so much the most unforgettable moment?
For me, the NBA, the games and stuff, as Mike know, you play so many, and they kind of mash together, so you don't get a chance to really appreciate them. But the day I got drafted, for me, that was just my day because I'm from a small town in Indiana, Muncie, Indiana. We have 50,000 people. It's 10,000 black people in our city, and everybody knows each other. So it's just a tight community, and there's not a lot of people that come. We're known as a basketball state in the basketball community, but nobody makes it to the level that I have. It's either you're going to play basketball, go to college, and then you're going to work in the factory, or maybe sell drugs or do whatever the case may be if you're not on the right, if your mindset is not right. So I just remember the day I got drafted, and I went through the whole process going to Ball State University, played 4 years, broke all the records. But, as Mike James will tell you, back then, mid-majors were looked at differently. They didn't really give, your stats from a mid-major the same props that the stat from like a Duke or one of those major five stats, So, I played well, but I didn't really understand about, this is before the internet. So you couldn't just pull up the mock drafts and all that crazy stuff. So I was just hearing chirps that, hey, Bonzi, you might get drafted. I remember a guy called me one day, was like, hey, you want to go to the draft? And I'm like, who is this? And it was Marty Blake. Didn't even know who Marty Blake was, and he was like, hey, I'm the head of scouting. You're going to be a top pick. And I just was like, whatever, I didn't know, people would tell you anything back then.
So I went to even know that you might be a top pick in the draft. You kind of had no idea. Oh, maybe.
I didn't really understand it because, I'm from a small community. I only trusted people in my community. I didn't know people that was telling me stuff. I was literally from a small community. So the people that were meeting were strangers telling me this stuff, so I didn't trust their word. People would tell you anything to get close to you, or at least I heard the stories, growing up. So I didn't know what to think. I was just like, until it happened, I don't believe it, So, people will tell you anything. So I just remember I flew my family out when going through the process, my mother, my father, brothers and sisters, my friends, my coach. And then when they called my name, I just remember looking at my dad, and he was, he's worked in the factory 30 years, strong man, and he was crying. And my mother was crying, and it was not like, boo-hoo, it was tears of joy, happy because, what I'm saying, we all grinded together, and it was just an opportunity, for us to go to another level, family-wise, and that's kind of what it did for the family. It just kind of just put us on another level.
Wow, that's incredible. And so they all came with you. It was this, obviously your success was their success and vice versa, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because as Mike knows, you touch so many lives, it's like a chain reaction, when you touch so many lives within your family, within your community, you try to help as much as you possibly can. You can't change the world, but if you can just help one person, it's always worth it, and we know a lot of stuff we do it from the heart. We don't need no fanfare or no stuff like that. We just understand, your situation, and sometimes stuff just need to get done. And, and we just try to inspire the next generation, the youth, and, pay it forward is always my message to the people. If I help you, you make sure you pay it forward and help somebody else. And it's, like I said, it's like a chain. So I really believe in that. Yeah.
Fast forward, here it is. You're young in your career, and you're playing with the Portland Trailblazers. And they started getting a little stigma about themselves, but at the same time, they were one of the powerhouses in the NBA at that time.
Yeah.
What was that like, man?
Yeah, man. So when I got to Portland, actually, like I said, I got drafted by the Detroit Pistons and ended up getting traded to Portland. So I remember the first day I got there, and I just got traded, and it was some particulars that were supposed to happen, so I couldn't practice. So I remember I was just sitting there on the sideline, and I just remember looking at the roster, and you got to be a basketball historian to remember some of these names, but I remember at the point guards, you had Damon Stoudemire, Greg Anthony, and Gary Grant. At the two guards, you had J.R. Ryder, Jimmy Jackson, and the third spot was supposed to be me. At the small forward, you had Walt Williams, Stacey Augmon, and a guy named Carlos Rogers. And in the four, you had Rasheed Wallace, Brian Grant, and I forgot who else was the fourth guy. And then at the center, you had Sabonis, Jermaine O'Neal, and Kelvin Cato. And I just remember watching those practices, and they was bumping. And then you had 4 or 5 journeymen that was trying to make the team. And I just remember watching practice, and I was just sitting back like, what the heck have I got into? Like, man, I ain't going to be able to play with these guys. It was just so crazy because I was just a fan first. But then once I got out there, it took me a little while. Like, they embraced me as a brother, and I got better. And then as we started playing, going for, Western Conference championships, having a chance to go for the championship, it was all fun. But then, towards the end, as they start putting the Jailblazer stigmas on us and all the bad boy talk and all that stuff, it just kind of ended a perfect marriage because we could have really done some things in Portland. Like, we should have won several championships and been a dynasty out of Portland.
And so do you honestly feel like because of the stigma that was thrown on the Trailblazer team during that era that it kept you from a championship? That was because of the stigma?
Come on now, you know what it is. I mean,
I'm just asking.
Come on now. I mean, well, you got to think they were calling us Jailblazers. Come on now.
It was.
I know now. I know the people ain't no rapper.
Out at you guys.
Definitely don't want them representing the NBA.
Yeah, they don't want us. When they threw that out there, we was dead in the water. Like I get it, it rhymes, it sounds good, but we ain't no Jailblazers, man. We ain't no dudes that's going to jail or doing stuff like that. You know, we were family men. We were dudes out here grinding, trying to win, and everybody can't win a championship. Mike James, you know, he was lucky enough to win a championship, but Mike knows the grind. Like, you know, from start to finish, it's tough to finish, and we just didn't finish all the time. And 30 other teams say the same thing every year, you know. So I didn't feel bad, but, you know, I know I competed and gave myself a chance to be in that position, and I'm satisfied with that. So, and you know, also Portland's a small market. You know, could you imagine having a Portland Indiana Pacer final? It don't, you know, it don't make sense. No disrespect to that, but that's just kind of what it was. And you know, the Lakers had Kobe and Shaq, you know, God rest the dead and Kobe. But you have, though they're way more marketable than, you know what I'm saying, the Jailblazers. They were scared how we was going to react if we won the championship, boy, because I know we would have probably acted a fool and got suspended the whole next year.
You know what, Bonds? I look at just you bringing up Kobe Bryant's name. You know, you was one of those guys that had a really good career against him, and that wasn't easy. That wasn't an easy task. You know, tell us about like your matchup against him and what was that like?
Well, you know, back then, you know, Mike, you know, as we grew up in the inner city, you know, you were a two-way player before they even called you the word two-way player. You know, you had to play defense before you can even play offense, especially in my hood. Like, man, you got to show that you can play or go rebound and stuff before we even call a play for you. So I was known as a defender. You know, in college, I led the nation in steals every year. I was a defensive player of the year and offensive player of the year. So that was my resume and my background. So, you know, and then Kobe, you know, playing Kobe. And Kobe was a great talent. But when you're in the league, Mike, as you know, everybody can play. You know, down to the 15th man to bust you on any given day. You know, so you gotta be ready. So the thing with Kobe is I played Kobe the best I could, but I can't just take all the credit because we had great team defenders. And if you think about the Scottie Pippins, the Rasheed Wallaces that's behind you, chirping in your ear, push him this way, hey, high hands, you know, just making it tough for him. So we had great schemes and battles. And, you know, Mike, as you know, and, you know, sometimes your offense got to be your best defense. So you got to attack him on the offensive end. And my thing was, I'm going to put him in the rim every single play. I'm going for every offensive rebound. He's going to have to account for me and exert some energy. So just maybe in that fourth quarter, he might just be a little tired, maybe a little fatigued, and maybe he might miss the key shot that might help us win the game.
That's phenomenal. Was there ever any moments in your career that you felt like you went too far? You're like, I could have pulled that back. I shouldn't, you know, like, is there a moment, like, what's a regret? You got any regrets in this? Because I know there's a lot of, you accomplished so many things, Bonzi.
You know, I regret being labeled a Jailblazer because, you know, a lot of, like, because I didn't, you know, the stuff that we done were basically jaywalking. People explained it like they was jaywalking with the intent to kill. Like, it was so mild what we done, but people would just magnify, like, oh, he did this and that, like, oh, he shouldn't be doing this. And you'd be like, bro, I got a technical foul. I'm sorry. You know, I've never done nothing off the court. I've never been a part of that. That was never something that was on my jacket. It was just getting technical fouls. So people just like, oh, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. I mean, Mike James will tell you, he probably thought I was wild until we met. And then when we met, you know, we gravitated to each other like brothers because, you know, sometimes when people are misunderstood, and Mike understood that I was misunderstood because he was the same as me. You know, some people can misunderstand you, and then when they get to know you, they're like, oh, he's totally different than I thought. I like him. And that's what one of my things was when I left Portland. I was trying to go to every team, trying to change my perception because, you know, when people don't know you, perception is reality. So everywhere I should go, I try to change it. You know, to let people know who I am. It's cool. I'm cool. I'm not this person that y'all try to point me out to be, but it was just so tough because people just always had in my mind, he's crazy, he's wild, he's going to be a problem. Let's be standoffish with him. And that's one of my biggest regrets that I was a part of that label.
I think that's the biggest problem, you know, even when Rasheed played the game and when you guys were in Portland, even though you guys had a great team, where any little thing that you do is going to be a technical foul call.
Yeah.
It's going to be a personal foul call because they want you to get riled up. So now the stigma is built, but it's a negative stigma.
Yeah.
And then even to, say what you was talking about with, when I first met you, I didn't really, I didn't think that I would build a relationship with you, but then you turned out to be one of my favorite people in the whole NBA, like throughout my whole career. And we became real close just based off of, how hard you worked, your personality, and you was just a genuine person. And that's the problem with front offices is they're going to ask another front office about this person and what is this person's character. And then instead of finding out who that person is for themselves, any little thing that person does, they're going to go back to those words of what was spoken negative about that person. So it's a doghouse already built even before you even get in a doghouse.
It's crazy because every time and you're right, every time they used to bring up something, I might do something good. And you've seen this, not just myself or anybody. They always learn how to tweak in that negative part towards the end of the story or whatever. Like, hey, he won MVP, but don't forget 3 years ago he had assault with his girlfriend. Like, what? Man, we had an argument. I didn't tell no matter what it was, they could just make it. Don't forget, you know what I'm saying? And that's the whole thing. They never want people to, they make you pay for stuff. Like when you're young, you go through woes, but you grow from that as a man, as a person. You learn from mistakes. They don't never let you forget it. And that's what I hated about the media and stuff like that. And that's why we got into this podcast world, because we give people a chance to know who we really are. We can tell our own stories. Like all the stories that's out there, now we can talk about them. We can recount them and be like, this is what really happened. So, y'all got to quit judging us like we was wilding out and tripping and look at the truth. So that's what we love about the podcast world.
Every story, yours, mine, and the truth.
I'm telling you.
Bonzi, let me ask you a question. Is there another player in the NBA right now that you feel like is getting labeled the way you and Sheed and your team was labeled back in the day? Is there somebody out there you're like, well, that's not fair. He's getting this stigma, reputation thrown on him. I don't know.
I mean, the first name you got to think of is a guy like Draymond Green, Russell Westbrook. You know what I'm saying? Those guys. And don't get me wrong. Some of the stuff they do borderline on, man, he tripping a little bit. But people don't understand the heat of these games, the jaw jacking, the competitive fiber that's everybody got going through them. And when you're a champion, like, let's say Draymond Green, people trying to bring you down. And his solely job is to be the strength for the rest of the guys. And Mike, as we both know and we play, you always have a couple of those guys on the team that, you have some guys that just really kind of passive in real life. Don't get me wrong, they can play their butt off, but they ain't just like, oh, you know what I'm saying? So you got to have something like a big brother, like on the team, like, man, you touching my guy, I'm going to have to touch you. And that's what Draymond Green is. He's like the big brother to all those guys. So he has to play his role every single night the way the other guys play their roles. So in real life, I bet Draymond Green is probably one of the coolest, genuine, nicest guys you can ever meet. But when you're on the court, like I used to tell people, listen, I just play a bad guy on TV. Trust me, I'm, saying that's just my character. In real life, I'm a good person. That's where I look at it. He just plays a bad guy on TV. This is his job. This is entertainment. And that it has basketball has an entertainment, value to it. And I think Draymond Green is one of those guys that get labeled wrong. But, that's just part of being the bad guy.
Yeah, it's part of the story, huh?
Yeah.
Bonds, let's talk about a little bit about the big three, man.
Oh,
we got a chance to play on the same team. We was in the old man league together. It gave us the opportunity to still be able to exhaust the game of basketball that was inside of us. And I know you might have mixed emotions about it, but tell us a little bit about, just being able to play the game again, how that felt.
Man, and I'm gonna be totally real with you, Mike James. When we started the Big Three, when it came an idea, when Ice Cube reached out to a bunch of us, it was just an idea that he came up with, and we just kind of tried to help him tweak it along the way, and it became a lot bigger than what we thought it was going to be. I mean, we had dreams of it, but we didn't think that it was going to be able to do all the stuff that we did. And when they started talking about we're going to have a 10-city tour, we're going to be together 3 days a week for those 10 weeks in a row. It's going to be we're going to be in front of the crowd again. We're going to play in front of NBA arenas, man. The rush of that was just like, oh my goodness. But I remember I was thinking about it and then I rubbed my knees and I said, golly, like, these 40-year-old knees, I don't know, you know, say like I ain't played 3-on-3 in a long time, so it sounded good until you started working out again. But you know, but it was just fun because it was bigger than basketball. You know, the hoop game was just cool. It was what it was. None of us expected to be who we used to be, but it was just fun being with the camaraderie. Like Mike said, you know, we're around guys that, you know, you never even thought, like, it was so many guys I never played with that I didn't even know, I just heard about. Now they become some of my closest friends, you know, because during that big three, it was just like a brotherhood. We had fun together. Mike, you know, me and Mike, you know, we're golfers. I don't know if he's told you about how I've been whooping on him on the golf for years, but that's another show.
No, real quick, just jump into that. Tell me how you beat Mike James.
Well, you know, Mike is I'm the Yoda to his, you know, like I baptized him into the golf. You know, I purify him in lake golf.
Yeah. Like, if you're Yoda, does that make Mike Luke Skywalker, or does it make him like that girl, the new Star Wars movie?
It could go back farther than that. You know what I'm saying? We keep watching him. But you know, Mike loves golf, and Mike, you know, we had such a great time playing golf with some of the legends. And man, we got a chance to play with Dr. J every week. George Gerving Iceman every week, Charles Oakley, you know, Clyde Drexler would get out there, you know, countless of, you know, some of the Fox Sports staff, Jimmy Jackson, Chauncey Billups, me, Mike, you know, it's probably 10 or 12 of us that we rotated every week. And we played for those 2 or 3 years, man. It was just a great time. I really was appreciative of the Ice Cube to really, you know, come bring that to us and give us a chance to be involved. You know, it may not have ended the way, you know, I wanted to, but, you know, as Mike, I don't know if he's told you, but after year one, I had a heart attack. You know, and I dealt with a heart attack after year one, and, you know, life changed for me. So, you know, everything, I'm so appreciative of everything. So I got a chance to recover from that, play year two, and just kind of being around the guys and, you know, all that stuff. It meant the world to me, man. So I was just thankful for every moment.
That's amazing. And we're so glad that you're healthy today. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm very thankful. I don't look at it as a negative. I look at it as a wake-up call, and, you know, everything in your life changed. And, you know, then that's why another reason why I started the podcast, because this happened almost 3 years ago in 2 months. So I could have been gone from here, but I'm here. So I got to get my message out there. I got to talk. I got to continue to help people, mentor, just do whatever, you know, like I said, pay it forward. And that's what it's all about.
I love that. That's amazing. What's your thoughts on the NBA return? Orlando, the bubble, shortened season. Should they, shouldn't they? What's your thoughts?
I mean, it's two ways to look at it. I mean, you know, because there's so much going on in the world. You have the Black Lives Matter movement and you have the coronavirus. You know, those two topics has really, you know, taken off. So one of the things I look at, hey, if you know, coronavirus is real. It's no guarantee that they can get down there and you can protect every single person. Don't get me wrong. They're going to do every protocol possible, and it could work out. So if they do play, cool. But then on another scale, the Black Lives Matter movement, with the coronavirus, you have guys going to answer the question, do I want to play? Don't play. Do I want to play, you know, risk it or not? And then you got the Black Lives Matter stuff happening where people like Kyrie Irving, for example. He's like, hey, guys should not play. You know, we should use this time to stand up and all this and that. And I totally get what he's saying. But this is a time to use this platform for your benefit. You know, you want to talk about all the stuff that's on your mind, because the NBA are so receptive to anything that the guys are talking about right now. I know King James has probably got a plethora of things that he's going to do to make sure that everything that the rhetoric is going on and the movement is still going on is going to be on the highest platform. He's going to really, he's going to really highlight exactly what they're all for it, as long as they keep the guys healthy and use this platform. And that's point blank. If you're going to play, use the platform.
So if you were playing today, you would go to Orlando?
I mean, definitely. Because I love the game, but I'm different. I haven't played in the league a long time. You know what I'm saying? So I missed the game. So I'm saying that from a vantage point of a ex-player. I would cherish every day. But if I'm in the moment, if I'm 27, 28, I would think about it, because, you know, these guys still got a future ahead of them. They got a lot of money to make, a lot of a lot of history to make, a lot of things to make in their lifetime. So they're thinking about the long-term part of it.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Bonzi, I know that you and Mike are good friends. Do you have a really good Mike James story that you would love to share? Because this would be the place to do it.
Well, one thing about Mike James, you know, we've been together a long time, man. And And Mike, we on the golf course, on the road, trying to see who could outshoot each other and all this stuff. And around all these places, there's sometimes music is on. And Mike James he thinks he knows every song in the world, but he literally don't know any lyrics to any song, and he will ad-lib every song. I mean, it could be the basic of the basic. I don't know, Mike will mess it up every single time. And every time there's some song come on, I just wait for it. And he gets da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So it's just, it's a running joke with us every time a song come on. I'm telling you, man, Mike is probably one of the funniest guys, man, in the history of the world, man. He's one of my best friends, man, that I met throughout the NBA, man. He's been solid in my life, man. And
that is absolutely amazing. So you would not choose him to be your friend on Name That Lyric or something like that?
No, not at all. Mike is killing it. I mean, I know I know your daughters are probably really giving you the blues at home because I know they're probably music and fashionistas, and I know Mike try to fit in with the girls sometimes. I know they just be putting their head up, Dad, you're embarrassing us.
So here's the question for you. Any final thoughts today? Bonzi, thank you for being on Mission Bound with us. We're excited about this podcast. Again, man, there's some really good things. We're talking about life. We're talking about sports. We're talking about leadership. And you're obviously stepping into a whole new place in your life right now with your new podcast with Rasheed Wallace. And just could you leave us with a final thought? If listeners out there, what do they need to know right now from your heart?
I mean, we're in a space right now, and I know I'm in a space right now in my life where I just want to just get things off my chest. Is going to help people. And we've both been through a lot of things in our life, good, bad, and the ugly. And if our experiences or our something that we say on our podcast can help any one person, is worth it. And I think that's what everybody who has a podcast has a message that is going to touch somebody. Our podcast can't be for everybody, but like we said, if it's for one, if it's for two, and so on and so on, please listen, man, because we just try to say stuff from our heart, talk about things, send in your questions, things you want to know, because it's an open forum with us. And I think all the podcasts are going with that way, where we want to connect with our fans and people that's out there hurting, that's going through some things. And if we can just save one, because the world is crazy right now with the coronavirus, with the protests, the rioting, the police brutality, this from everything. So you have to be safe, and you're not alone out there. So if you need somebody to really talk to, man, reach out, man, and just stay safe, because God is testing the world right now, man. And you just want to just make sure, you stay blessed, and you just stay blessed. And that's just the biggest word I can say right now.
Well, Bonzi, I hope that your podcast with Sheed is a little bit of light in the dark places in the world right now. We want to thank you, Mike, and I want to thank you for being on this show today, Mission Bound. And you know what? What's great is that you came on the show before Sheed. Just want to get that out in the air there on that.
Oh yeah. We're gonna definitely get him on here, man. Sheed is hilarious.
Thank you for being on the show today, Bonzi. And just remember, the ball don't lie. Okay, just remember that.
My boy. Thanks, man.
Have a great day.
Well, that's it today. Thank you for being on Mission Bound Podcast, hanging out with us, watching. That was the great Bonzi Wells with a ton of inspiration and an insight to his illustrious NBA career. Thank you for joining us today. Come on back to the next episode. We will be letting you know who is going to be on. You can go on our Facebook account, Mission Bound, and check out Mike and I's thoughts. And we're so excited that you came and hung out with us today. And we will look forward to seeing you again real soon. Bye.